Good morning.
Good morning.
That song really gets to me. Resentment and bitterness, all those nasty, nasty things that are in our hearts on occasion, right? It's not just me, I hope. Anybody else out here a hypocrite? Just check. So, let's see. This is a little bit different. It doesn't have the same kind of flow as I normally do with my sermons, because I wanted to explain a couple of things before we get into the main idea. And the first thing I wanted to explain is something about who I am. And I think most of you know that I used to be a teacher, right? And that's my essence. It feels like it's my essence. So because part of that has to do with a constantly inquisitive mind. I get curious about so many things, and my way of dealing about curiosity is to just read and read and read and read and read until I feel like, okay, I got it down. I understand it. And who knows, what's going to travel down the path and get me interested in stuff. Of course, now most of what I read is about growing things. And I don't think I'll ever be done with reading about that. It's an amazing kind of application. There is so much to learn, and I am in awe of the people who seem to have mastered great parts of it. It just blows my mind. But to go back in time a little ways, in the first decade of the 2000s, one of the things that I got fascinated with at some point was primatology, the study of primates. So I think I read about that, I don't know, maybe for about a year, different authors and stuff like that. And that has put into my mind and into my vocabulary the phrases monkey mind, because I believe that we default to monkey mind a lot. And I often refer to myself as a judgy monkey because all of that judginess is really deeply wired. And even if you don't believe in evolution, and you don't have to, there is a lot of similarity between the way that primates behave and how they act with one another in their societies, and how we do too. So if you're interested, one of the best books about this is by a guy who runs a primate community in Atlanta, Georgia. His name is Franz DeWaal, and this is called Our Inner Ape. Holy cow, it's quite a book. Anyway, I brought that just in case anybody's interested. So on my subject today, let it be, if we want to change our behavior, we have to change our thinking. And changing our thinking is a big deal, right? Because we do tend to get into habits of thought, into patterns, and before you know it, that becomes patterns of behavior, and some of them aren't that nice. I know this. I have personal experience with this in my family, and also with my beloved husband. There are some habits that have been formed that I'm not fond of, and I've been trying to embrace them. And today, one of the things that I want to do, the main thing, is teach you something that I'm finding is very interesting, to change those things, because if you don't change the stuff in your head, that resentment, that bitterness is just going to hang out in this little closet and pop out when you hit the button, right? When you hit the hot button. So on the concept of being judgy monkeys, it's one of our favorite things to judge others, right? And Jesus says, stop it. Jesus, tell us how, okay? Can we get some lessons on that? I think it was probably easier for his disciples, who could be around him all the time and have that role modeling. But we don't. There are very few people in our world who do not indulge in this, at least for fun on occasion. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about judging ourselves and why we tend not to look at ourselves as hypocrites, right? Because we tend to think we're pretty good people, right? Pretty nice person. I haven't killed anybody. I don't steal. I don't lie. Okay, that's pretty nice. How many of you are familiar with the term cognitive dissonance? Yeah. You know, when I first learned about this, it seemed like nobody knew about it. But in the 30 years since, it seems to have become very popular in our culture. So very briefly, cognitive dissonance is a little technique our brain does. Our basic default setting in our heads is, I'm a pretty nice person, right? I'm a pretty good person. I am a good person. I don't do bad things. Now, there are some people who do not have that setting. They're judging themselves the other way, right? And then what happens is when we have something that comes along where maybe somebody hits my hot button, and my hot button is, I know stuff. And when somebody thinks they know better than me, oh my gosh, that gets me going. So what happens then is that the monster inside of me is released, the monster of pride. How dare you? I know this, not you. So then I start judging, and maybe I'll say some things that are not that nice. I might even do some things that are not that nice. And, you know, if I actually remembered it, I might regret it. But cognitive dissonance is the idea. Cognitive dissonance is like when you play two notes that don't sound good together, right? It just makes you go, oh, stop, oh, stop. Well, the thought that I am not a good person is dissonant with my basic setting about how good I am. And so something needs to be done. And so I will rationalize. And rationalization is the process by which we basically go, you know, that just happened because maybe I didn't get enough sleep last night, or, you know, whatever the excuse is. And that becomes rationalization. And then we put that bad behavior away and we forget about it. Now, social psychologists have studied this a lot. The people who perform the bad behavior and then the people who receive the bad behavior. And you know what they found out is that the people who do it forget. And the people who have it done unto them don't. They remember it. So we tend to forget that stuff. We are hypocrites. Jesus is 100% right, because that's the way our brains work. And when we do that rationalization, and when we shove that bad behavior or those bad things that we said in a closet, then we're not recognizing, and we're not making it any better either. So I was looking for some, I don't know how this even came into my head, how I became aware of it. But at some point, I found this technique for how do you deal with the bad stuff inside of you. And this comes out of Buddhism, and the acronym for it is RAIN, R-A-I-N. And yes, there will be a quiz because it's a 4-step process, okay? So RAIN, it's kind of a beautiful idea, the word rain, you know, because you get wet, you get changed, and something changes in you. So the R in RAIN has to do with recognize. Stop for a minute, be conscious, recognize what the heck you're doing. And don't be so quick to do that other R, that rationalize and shove it away. So pause, be conscious, recognize, oh, you know what, I just I just had my hot button hit and I'm mad. And that's my judgy monkey self all activated. And now I'm gonna say something bad. I said something bad, or I did something bad, or I'm gonna give Mark the silent treatment because by golly, he deserves it. Yep. So recognize that, recognize it. That just takes a moment. The next step takes a little bit more. And I think the A is about acceptance. I think for this step, it really, really helps to have Jesus or God or Mother Mary or somebody who's your spiritual helper to help you stop and accept and say, yep, I did that. Yes, that was little old me. That was little old judgy monkey me. And let that sit for a bit. So recognize and accept. What happens when you accept is you stop the process of cognitive dissonance. You stop going back to that automatic default of, oh yeah, I'm such a good person. You know, that's an anomaly. That's an exception. I don't normally behave that way. Yes, let's move forward. No, we're not moving forward. We're going to stop here. We accept that we did it and take responsibility. The I in RAIN, recognize, accept. I is investigate. And again, I think this is really important to do with a spiritual guide, some sort of spiritual helper who's going to hold your hand. Because once you start to investigate this, you're going to go into icky places inside yourself. The icky places where fear and sadness live. And we don't really, really long to go there, right? We spend our lives trying to escape going to those places. But those are the battery for so much of what we do. The fears that we have and the sorrows that we have provide us with so much energy in our life to do the things that we do, to keep on avoiding them. So this takes a lot of courage because there are going to be those feelings. What is it that happens to me when Mark hits my hot button and I get so mad and then I tend to be more the cold, silent type, so that I react like, "Brr." Well, something happened there that was about rejection. Something he said was about not loving me, or me not feeling like I'm being loved by him. And so I'm taking that in, and what's that fear about? Well, I'm unlovable, right? Because really, I know those terrible things are down inside of me. Some of those terrible, nasty things are really who I am, right? Because that fear and that sadness created them. So again, have someone in your mind and in your heart and in your soul to hold your hand and say, you know, I love you. It's going to be okay. It's okay to go to this dark place. It's okay to examine this inside yourself because you're still a child of God. You're still my child. I love you. And we need that if we're going to be brave, if we're going to go in dark pathways. So we have recognize, accept, investigate. That may take some time, and you may want to journal about it too. You may want to write about what is going on here. I think what you'll find is that the patterns of behavior are kicked off by the same feeling that comes from something, and if you work on it, you'll figure out where did that come from, right? Now, here's the weird part. The N in rain stands for non-identified. Because, by golly, the things that are the dark things, they really feel like they are us, right? Our pain is part of who we are. But the truth is, we all have pain, right? We all have grief. We've all been to those black places. So by non-identifying, what we're talking about is, who are we really? Are we that dark response to things? Or are we something else? How do we separate that and go, oh my gosh, it's a judgy monkey pattern. That's all it is. And I learned this judgy monkey pattern probably when I was a kid or a teenager, when I wasn't very aware of who I am and who I can be. But now we're older. When I was a child, I thought and talked as a child, right? That's in scripture. But now I'm not a child anymore. I'm a child of God, but I'm also an adult, and I'm a responsible adult. And I can deal with this differently if I'm willing to take the time, take the patience to recognize, accept, investigate, and then non-identify, let it loose, let it be. What's that it? It's the thing inside that we think is who we are, but it's not really. It's just a response. It's part of our biology. It's not really about who you are. So that's the it. Let it be. And that's why I thought that song is a good one. The song that we'll have coming up in a couple of minutes is called Let It Rain. Do you remember that one? Eric Clapton. This one's with the Doobie Brothers and Peter Frampton. And some of the words are, now I know the secret, there is nothing that I lack. If I give my love to you, you'll surely give it back. And there are other great words in this song. It's beautiful. I love the Doobies. I love Peter Frampton. The only question I have for you is, it's 5 minutes long, which is kind of long because the second half is a lot of solos. So do you want the short one or the long one? Long version. Okay, cool. Let's see. I think I'm done. Thank you.